about your untapped human potential, it's like, how can we be with all of those layers and
Mm,
integrate them and move smoothly through them,
mm.
and that they all become like at a similar wavelength or a similar level, and we're not, blindsided by suddenly being in our emotional body or being in our bliss body or being, in our etheric body, that we can inhabit that space of our body as well.
Ah. Welcome to Love Magic Miracles. I'm Alina GG, and if you're a soul-led entrepreneur who wants to make a big impact in the world, you're in the right place. And if you'd love to weave feminine embodiment into your everyday and quantum leap every area of your business and love life to new heights, then plug into these conversations with these inspiring thought leaders and hit subscribe, comment, like, and share with someone you care about today. Hi, it's Alina GG from Love Magic Miracles, and I have an exciting announcement. Doors are officially open to the Safe to Be Seen Accelerator program. Now, this 12-week container is for you if you're sick of playing small, you're done hiding, you're ready to embody your messaging and your business, and you really want to show up at that next level and feel good about it. For years, I felt like it actually wasn't safe to be seen, and if I'm honest, it was because it was subconscious. It wasn't really conscious. I couldn't really tell you why I felt unsafe to be seen. It wasn't like everyone really was going to judge me or tell me I wasn't good enough, but it was actually more my inner critic telling me, right? That voice inside my head. And I don't know if we can really silence that inner critic. I don't know if anyone can ever really do that, but we can turn that volume down. And I'm here to hold space for others to do that, right? To really connect deeper in to those visibility blocks and start to turn the volume down on your inner critic, and then turn the volume up on your self-expression and who you are and your purpose and your messaging and your aliveness and your brilliance, and get it out in the world. So if this excites you, head on over to lovemagicmiracles.com, check out the Safe to Be Seen Accelerator program and the testimonials, and join now. Welcome to Love Magic Miracles. I'm Alina GG, and I have a very special guest for you today. I have Aimee Takaya. She is a Hanna Somatic educator and a transformation facilitator. Welcome aboard.
Hi, nice to be here.
Clarify exactly for those who don't understand what somatic work is. What does that mean?
Somatic work, it connects you to your ongoing inner experience in your body and connects you to that as a source of wisdom and strength, right? It's this idea of like listening to our bodies versus my body is something to overcome, right? So practice, for example, for contrast, that's not very somatic would be like, I'm going to use my powerful mind to override my body and the signals that my body is sending me. And I'm just going to power through and do what my ego or what society or what like my desire is for myself, and ignore what my body's saying, right? And I clarify that because that's actually how I operated for the first part of my life, unknowingly, even as a yoga teacher, as someone who was attempting to really listen to my body. We don't know what we don't know. And so somatic practices, ideally, if they're truly somatic, are connecting you with your ongoing inner experience as a source of wisdom and strength, right? And there's a lot of different somatic practices out there.
Okay. So somatic means that the body's own awareness. Is that right?
Yes, and it's an interesting thing because our body includes our thoughts and feelings. We live in a paradigm that has tried to teach us that we're not whole and has taught us that our mind and our body are somehow separate, but they're not. And so my approach to somatic is not just what we feel and sense, but also our emotions and our mental, landscape. All of that is our soma, or our living body, right?
Mm. Mm. And you say that pain in the body is untapped potential. So I've actually woken up with a bit of like tightness in my muscles in my back today. I'm a celiac and I ate some chocolate which might have had a bit of gluten contamination, and it's like it causes this inflammation or something going on in there. What what could I do about it then?
Well, it's, you know, there's layers of stress that we're experiencing. So like someone who is celiac and, you know, or sensitivities to food that you pointed out, that can be like a layer of
Hmm.
stress that we're experiencing that then now that, you know, tension in your back twinges a little bit more. Your body kind of calls out to you a little bit more about that space.
Hmm.
But, you know, and this kind of goes into what is Hanna Somatic Education, like what specific modality I work with, is that our body is constantly habituating our stress states, our varying types of stress that we experience, including muscular stress. So even though you don't maybe feel it right now, your body is contracting certain muscles to keep you upright in a seat. Your body has been using muscles all day to hold up the weight of your head, to get up and walk around. And so those muscles are over time gradually increasing in their tension, but we don't notice it until it's pain or discomfort. And we may not notice it until our stress state from some other factor starts rising and our nervous system gets toned up in some way. And now we're having back pain, right?
Hmm.
Now we're having aches and pains in our bodies. But the truth is that the habituation or the unconscious patterns are going on all the time on a muscular level. And that's actually what I help people retrain is their literal muscular system. And by way of their muscular system, we reprogram their nervous system.
Wow. Wow, that sounds really powerful. Can you give me an example of an exercise of what you would do with somebody, how you would walk them through it? Yeah.
Sure. It's actually extremely simple,
Hmm.
but very different than what we are accustomed to because what we're doing is reducing the tonicity of your muscle or reducing the habituated stress pattern. And so it's less sensational than something like stretching or yoga. It's actually very subtle at first when you haven't really practiced it before. So, like right now, you're sitting upright. And
Hmm.
what I might ask you to try if you are having discomfort in your back, right? Do you
Hmm.
feel any like of that right now? Do you feel like any
Yeah.
tension in your back as you're sitting here?
Yeah. I just don't like
Okay.
sitting at
So
a
what you would
desk in
do,
general. Yeah.
right? So this is a great tool because you can use this anytime, any place, right?
Okay.
And this is just like one of the most fundamental movements that I teach, right?
Hmm.
What you would do is you would gently arch your back, which will cause your body to kind of rise up. So try that, arch your back a little bit.
Hmm.
And now super, super slowly, very, very slowly come out of the arch. Really, really, really slow all the way out until you're no longer holding that arch anymore.
Hmm.
And then at the end of the movement, relax if you can and just see how much you can relax.
Hmm.
Right? And then we would do it again. But if there was any discomfort, if when you arched your back, there was an increase in discomfort, and that's where this kind of like listening to your body things comes in, you do the movement less intensely and smaller. And what you
Hmm.
just did just now, where you drew your shoulders back, we can actually bring that intuitive thing that you just did into this movement now. So now this time, you're going to arch your back and you're going to draw your shoulders back a little bit. Feel your back tightening when you do this, right? You're going to arch and draw your shoulders back. And then really, really slowly, slower than you want to, you're going to let go of it. Really, really slow, slow, slow. It's kind of jerky, right? That's normal in the beginning, all the way out. And then rest for a moment and just relax. Okay.
Hmm.
How does that feel that time?
Yeah, I feel more yeah, more sort of rested in my seat.
Yeah, we'll do it one more time. Three times
Okay.
usually a charm. So this time
Okay.
when you do it, I want you to try to do it less intensely, meaning more casually. Instead of like
Hmm.
an effortful thing you're doing, you want to try to do sort of gently and casually, as if it's just this kind of funny little movement that you're doing, right?
Hmm.
So you're going to inhale and arch your back and draw your shoulders back and in a little bit. And smaller, more gently this time. And then very, very slowly, slower than you want to, you're going to come out. Really, really slow. Let go of that. Let go of the arch. Let your shoulders come away from each other and rest. And now, how does your back feel? Is there any change from those movements that you can sense? Any new awareness you have?
Yeah, I'm just wondering because it should my tummy be completely relaxed or switched on a bit?
When you're sitting here,
Yeah, when I'm sitting.
I mean, sitting upright is honestly, it's a co-contraction of both sides of your body. And so there's probably going to be a little bit of tonicity on both sides of your body just in a sitting up position. Are you noticing tension in your stomach?
No, I'm there's no tension. So I'm wondering if I need to
Oh,
activate it more. Yeah.
well, what you might be noticing is that
Mm.
maybe your back is very tight. And so it's kind of
Mm.
inhibiting your stomach muscles from working. And that's part of the
Hmm.
reason your back's really tired is because it's doing all the work. Now,
Yeah.
regular kind of physical therapy, like yoga, even we'd have you contract your stomach consciously to balance it out. But what we do in Hanna Somatics is we just focus on continuing to release the overly tight space in your body so that
Mm.
natural balance can be found again. So, like if I was
Mm.
working with you, honestly, I'd have you lay down to do these exercises
Mm.
because then your back could more deeply relax. And that's what
Mm.
I do. Like a lot of my sessions, the work that I do with people, at least over Zoom, and I
Yeah.
teach group classes, I have a
Hmm.
whole group program based on this modality. People are literally lying on their bedroom floor,
Mm.
and I'm asking questions and I'm teaching them how to specifically release muscle patterns in their body that
Mm.
have been accumulating, that have been causing tension and pain, and that are there because of different life experiences that they've gone through that are
Mm.
still holding on to things in their body.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like body work, except I'm just mostly facilitating it online. I mean, there's a hands-on aspect to this I do in person and at my
Hmm.
retreats where you
Hmm.
actually get my hands following you with the movement so you can really feel your muscles contracting and you can feel your muscles lengthening and relaxing. But what
Hmm.
this does is it just changes the entire way that your body's been organized, which is
Hmm.
also rearranging the way your consciousness has been organized.
Wow. That's amazing. And with sitting on a chair with wheels, is that not a good thing?
I think it's okay. I mean,
Hmm.
I think that a lot of the a lot of the things that we might try to adapt in our environment to, like, you know, I guess address some kind of challenge that we're having internally, whether that's like a muscle pattern or, a mental or emotional pattern. We might try to, like, okay, well, what I need to do is just make my environment like this to
Hmm.
accommodate my thing. What we end up doing when you're doing, different kinds of somatic work is you can change what's happening inside of you, and then the things in your environment don't need to shift as much. The
Hmm.
chair that you're sitting in isn't as important when your body is simply relaxed and balanced as a normal. So, ergonomic things and what position you're sitting in, your body might inform you and let you know for your specific constitution, you might need something specific for a time. But
Hmm.
in my experience, like it just becomes less important to accommodate my stress patterns when my stress patterns are released.
Mm. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So when I
Yeah, it's really
listen,
different.
well, yeah, but it makes sense because it is all connected. We've got all our layers of our being and all our koshas and yeah, so that makes
Yeah,
sense. And it's interesting. We have some similarities with, studying yoga in India and becoming yoga teachers and all of that. And yeah, you went on this whole journey and about your tummy was too tight or something. And then what do you want to just share with the audience
sure.
about that?
So we call it in my modality like sensory motor amnesia. Basically, there are certain parts of our bodies that we forget. They get like forgotten physiologically speaking. Like we don't have a pathway connecting to that space, or maybe the pathway that is connecting to that space is like pre-programmed. Like if you've ever just noticed yourself like squeezing your legs together when you're in public, or if you've ever noticed that you suck your stomach on all the time, especially if you're wearing like tight clothing, that you just have this tendency to like clench your stomach. Or maybe you've noticed something else. Maybe you've noticed your shoulders kind of shrugging up. That's a sign that there's a pattern running in your nervous system keeping something going all the time. And you're usually not aware of it, except these sudden moments you become aware of it and try to do something about it. Well, I ended
Mm.
up finding out that I had a lot of sensory motor amnesia, or had forgotten spaces in my stomach, that I was very disconnected from this central space in my body. And it's my first podcast episode because I also have a podcast. I talk about like
Mm.
kind of realizing or coming to this as I began practicing these somatic movements, right? In
Mm.
the first part of my journey with these somatic movements while I was in India. And one of the things I talked about in there that some people might be able to relate to or maybe find fascinating is that, in India, they practice yoga in loose fitting clothing.
Mm.
And in a lot of Western countries, we wear very tight clothing,
Mm-hmm.
pressing up against our bodies. And that tight clothing is actually feedback telling you like where the boundaries of your body are. That's
Mm-hmm.
why some people who have sensory issues or on the spectrum, they either can't have tight clothing or they have to have tight clothing,
Mm-hmm.
depending on their nervous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to India, and instead of wearing tight clothing, I was wearing loose fitting clothes. And it became very obvious to me that like I didn't actually know where the boundaries of my body were in clothes. And I felt disoriented and even like a little bit afraid because like I didn't really know what my body was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I didn't have all of the information, neuroscience information, neurophysiological information that I do now. But I did have the experience of going, oh, wow, like I have been completely blind to this space in my body. And there's a lot of trauma and pain and sorrow that I've been holding there unconsciously that's been actually in the way of my connection with other people, my connection with myself, and in the way of a functional yoga practice too.
Mm. Wow. So, I mean, I guess everybody's different. Every single body is unique then. So a general practice is not it's not good to do a one size fits all.
I mean, it depends on the practice you're doing, I suppose. Like, I do believe that we can find ways to teach yoga and teach, somatics to a wide variety of different bodies. But the invitation, I think, always has to be helping the person to connect with what they are experiencing internally and invite them to let that guide their
Mm-hmm.
process. Because
Yeah.
then that person, because I can't know what's going on in your body. I
Mm-hmm.
can't know what
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing. Just by looking from the outside, I could be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you need to bring your shoulder forward, or you need to
Mm-hmm.
like tuck your pelvis under. But
Mm-hmm.
that might not feel like the right
Mm-hmm.
thing for your body. You might do that and it
Mm-hmm.
feels really strained or difficult, or maybe even
Mm-hmm.
there's pain as a response to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that authority. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of invitation that I approach yoga or somatics or any kind of movement practice with now is like there's the general guidelines of what to do. And then I invite you to be the leader in your own body of how
Mm-hmm.
that's going to go down.
Yeah.
That's how you get it to be individual, right?
Yeah, definitely. To modify, it's like yoga therapy. It's looking at that, yeah, in listening to your body and observing, yeah, observing the sensations, observing the breath, observing the thoughts, and yeah. Well, that's great. So, what else inspires you then in this work, or in not in this work? What else inspires you in general? Yeah.
I mean, I think that we are many of us who are on like a healing journey, we can get very serious and we
Mm-hmm.
can get very like focused on, it's almost like its own addiction sometimes to
Mm-hmm.
achieving the next level of, breakthrough or success or whatnot. And, I've certainly been kind of caught up in that at different times myself. But one thing that I'm quite passionate about now is like finding ways to have fun and finding ways to enjoy my experience in my body because I recognize that pleasure and having a positive experience in my body and in my life and
Mm-hmm.
having fun with other people is
Mm-hmm.
something that like, I missed out on when I was caught up in so many of my pain patterns for so long. Like, when I carried
Yeah.
around like this emptiness and this disconnection inside myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? The thing that I'm healing from, right? I missed out on some of the joy that life has. And so,
Yeah.
that's why whenever I have the opportunity to do retreats and events,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we talk about the serious stuff. We
Mm-hmm.
do somatics. We do this really beautiful movement practice and we like allow, whatever's there to come to the surface. But I also do fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love ecstatic dance. I
Mm-hmm.
love, you know, music and just bringing like a sense of humor and a sense of joy to the work, right? We don't have to
Mm-hmm.
take it like so seriously, but we can also like allow for seriousness to come in, when it's
Mm-hmm.
there. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'd say in
beautiful.
general, I'm passionate about having fun at this point in my life. It's a good.
Great. Ah, I relate so much to what you're saying. And yeah, I had some serious pain patterns though that were held in my neck after a car accident for many years. And yeah, it's gotten better over time, and with a bit more yoga practice and awareness and observing and healthy habits and things like that. But yeah, I mean, gosh, what an interesting world we live in. There's so many choices at any given moment now, of what we can be doing in our life that it's like, it becomes a bit overwhelming sometimes. You're just like, wow, I want to do everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, there's also going to be usually a combination of things that work for a person.
Mm,
Like, my background in yoga, like I was in a pretty dogmatic,
mm,
in a way, there was a period of time, at least with this type of yoga, that it was very narrow-minded and like, this is the way, this is
mm,
how you do it, this is yoga,
mm,
and it's better than other yoga. And that now I see that that's just not true. Even with the modality that I teach, like it does something very specific, but this
mm,
is meant to be blended and interacted with other modalities. Like we
mhm,
are supposed to, because what I'm working with is my body, my soma, my nervous system. So like,
mhm,
let's bring in other things. Let's
mhm,
meld this together.
mhm,
This is meant to go with everything and be a connector between things, versus like,
mhm,
thinking that there's just going to be one way that we heal. There's going to be a lot of ways that we heal, and they're going to shift and change as we shift and change, and our needs shift and change, and our awareness shifts and changes.
mhm. It does. We're always changing. Life is always changing. Yeah. So what was what caused this trauma or this tightness in your belly? Like was there an incident, or was it familial conditioning from your upbringing?
I mean,
What was
it's
going?
it's all of it. I mean, like my mother at some point in my childhood told me that it was a good idea to suck your stomach in all the time because it strengthened your abdominal muscles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could even, trace it back like culturally to like the times when women wore corsets,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even in, the 1950s and 60s, they were still cinching their waists and having these tiny little waists and flat bellies, but for me, there was layers of challenge because at like 7.5 years old, I went through puberty.
Oh, that's
So
right.
my
Yeah.
body like exploded into like a woman's
Mm,
body, and it was
right.
honestly very traumatizing and very scary for
Mm,
me as a child. And during that time I got like excessive amounts of stretch marks, like all over
mm-hmm.
my abdomen, which
Mm-hmm.
was, the tearing of my dermal tissues.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of scar tissue that I still have there, like,
Mm,
and this is something that, has taken so many years to like really honor and like see the beauty in, because it was a
mm,
difficult thing to carry around, in my
yeah.
body for a long time. Just, the literal memories of being like a child who doesn't know what's
Mm,
happening to my body, and my body
gosh.
feels like my enemy, and like,
Mm,
that I'm a freak, that I'm some kind of disturbed being, right?
mm,
Versus now looking back as an adult, it's like, oh, I
mm,
can understand like that this not didn't just happen to me. There's other people out there who had these
mm,
experiences. There's
yeah.
other women throughout time and history. There's even other women
Mm,
who have lots of stretch marks from having had a baby,
mhm,
or having had surgeries, and,
mm,
all the different things, gained lots of weight. And, this can be a very sensitive space because I think
mm,
culturally we've been conditioned to despise having a soft or flabby or loose tummy. That's
mm,
something that we're taught is unattractive and,
mhm,
not youthful, not beautiful, right?
mhm,
And in many ways, you look around at like the ideal bodies, and there are women's stomachs who look like men's stomachs, who have tight abdomens and abdominal muscles, and, are flattened
mm,
out and don't have this, you know, little pout at your lower abdomen where your uterus is. Like we want to like
mhm,
cut that off or something,
mhm.
And so I think it's all of it, which was
Yeah.
part of why I had this disconnection from my stomach. I had been clenching and sucking my stomach in since I was a small child. And I
Mm,
also carried literal scars of,
mm,
having gone through a physiological experience that I wasn't really ready for, you know?
mm. Yeah.
So, now I have had a child, and
Mm-hmm.
One of the weird bonuses is my body didn't change much in
Mm.
having a child because I already had the stretch marks, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, our bodies are going to continue to change. Like my stomach is
Mm-hmm.
going to continue to change. And, you
Mm.
know, redefining what is beautiful, redefining what that means has been a
Mm.
big theme for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been aware and conscious of modeling positive body image to my two daughters. And yeah, and like I feel like I do accept my body as it is. And although I do relate to the whole tummy thing because yeah, like it's like there's this shame around it when you're bloated or your tummy's sticking out, or it's like there's this whole thing and this whole energy, and it's like maybe we just need to love it a bit more, and just like it's like such an opportunity for healing. But there are so many messages, like you said, from society and from yeah, what's good, what's attractive, what's not, and therefore if it's not attractive, then you've got to cover up, or you've got to hide, or you're less than. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we all have these bodies, and we're blessed to have bodies. We're blessed to be alive. We're blessed to be living in this time. There's so many opportunities available to us. So when we bring our, still stay connected to our breath and our body, but zoom out and go, well, hang on, what's really important in life? Well, that feeling of connection and to our heart and to others, then it's like all of that just falls away, doesn't it?
Right. Well, and the other challenging piece is that, like, this is such an important place in your body. This is
Mm-hmm.
such an important place for uh, natural breathing to occur. When our stomach is clenched, we can't breathe deeply,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's nowhere for our organs to go. Our stomach is supposed to push out and expand as our
Mm-hmm.
diaphragm moves down. And when our stomach is clenched tight, we limit how much air we can take in. And so we limit how deeply we can actually relax on a nervous system level,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then the other challenge is too that this is the home of your microbiome. This is where your gut is. This is where your food is being digested and turning into energy and life force so that you can go out there and do amazing things with your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so how many people that, you know, have gut health issues, like I had gut health
Mm-hmm.
issues for a long, long time. And so much of it was related to my nervous system and my muscular
Mm-hmm.
system. And no doctor would ever have thought to tell me that, but
Hmm.
that was my reality when my nervous system started
Mm,
calming and my muscular system started relaxing.
mm.
My food sensitivities started shifting.
Wow.
My yeah, my health started changing because I had this awareness of this really important space. Furthermore, this
Mm,
space between your rib cage and your pelvis, this
mhm,
soft space that we get shamed for being, you know, chubby or bulky or flabby or whatever, this needs to be flexible so that
mhm,
we can have functional movement patterns, so
mhm,
that we can actually literally locomote our bodies through time and space. If this
mm,
space is clenched up and tight, we are not going to move very gracefully or easily. It's going to take that much more effort to make ourselves move through the world, or even
mhm,
just to stand up or sit in a chair for lengths of time for
mhm.
whatever it is that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So in working with my stomach and releasing that and working to honor that space in my body instead of loathe it and
Mhm.
despise it for not looking a certain way, right? But
Yeah.
seeing again, this idea of beauty is so much deeper and more potent, you know. Furthermore, like, you know, if you're having children, like you're
Mm,
that's the place in your body that's making another human being. You know what
mm.
I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
I could go on and on about like this is
Mhm,
such a sacred place,
mhm,
and it's a kind of terrifying thing when you think about how many people in the world are despising it or shaming themselves daily for this space
mm.
in their body that does so much for them.
Yeah. Well, isn't it one of our power centers, like Manipura? It's like our power center,
Yes.
our free will, how we have choice and self-expression. And yeah, that's, well, amazing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that you talk about the koshas because you've mentioned that on
Mhm,
some of your podcasts before, and just
mhm.
these different layers of our consciousness, because I talk about them too,
Yeah.
actually, in a lot
Yeah.
of my work, because it's a really great way to help people understand that there are many layers of experience that we are moving through as beings all the time.
Wow.
And, you know, I tend to think of like if you put all of the koshas together, that's your
Mhm.
soma. That's
Oh,
what
wow.
soma is like all the koshas
Oh,
integrated and blended together and dancing through those spaces, right?
mm. Well, let's unpack the koshas if you like. Let's what do you
Sure.
want to walk us through your take on each layer?
I mean, there's different, you probably are familiar with more of the terminology, but the way I usually talk about it is like you have your first layer, which is like your physical body,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have like a mental body, an
Mm-hmm.
emotional body,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then your bliss body, and then like an etheric body.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing one of them here? Or is
No, I think you got them all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we're usually only tuned in to maybe like one or two of these spaces at any given time. And then you're going
Mm-hmm.
to meet people in your life who are much more comfortable in certain layers of their kosha. So you might
Mm-hmm.
meet someone who's like very comfortable in like the outermost layer. They might be like a
Mm-hmm.
light worker, right? They might
Mm-hmm.
be very comfortable in these etheric realms and
Mm-hmm.
connecting with, their spirituality and with,
Mm-hmm.
channeling and creativity, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
they might not be actually that comfortable in their physical body. They
Mm-hmm.
might actually not know how to read cues that their physical body is giving them. They might have chronic
Mm-hmm.
pain. They might have food
Mm-hmm.
allergies and sensitivities, right? That's what we might
Mm-hmm.
describe as like a highly sensitive person, where they're like really in
Right.
this outer layer of their kosha,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then you might meet someone who's like very physical.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
like really in their physical body and they do a lot
Mm-hmm.
of physical training and they're fit and they're
Mm-hmm.
athletic and they seem very instinctual and seem to like know what they want and go for what they
Mm-hmm.
want. But you get out into like their emotional body and maybe that's not an area, that's not a kosha that they're very
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like that's an
Yeah.
area where they may be a little underdeveloped. But that's
Mm-hmm.
that's okay because like you said
Mm-hmm.
before, like everybody's different
Mm-hmm.
and we can actually learn a lot from people who
Yeah.
have spent a lot of time in one layer of their consciousness.
Yes.
That's why you go see a psychologist. They've spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time in that mental body, that mental
Mm-hmm.
emotional body, and they have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
wisdom there. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same with like the personal trainer who's like in their very physical body. There's
Mm-hmm.
wisdom there,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I
Yeah.
think like when I talk about your untapped human potential, it's like how can we
Yeah.
be with all of those layers and
Mm-hmm.
integrate them and move smoothly through them and that they all become like at a similar wavelength or a similar level and we're not, blindsided by suddenly being in our emotional body or being in our bliss body or being, in our etheric body that we can inhabit that space of our body as well.
Oh, that's beautiful, what you just said. And, I feel like we need to remember that it's safe to feel and it's safe to cry and it's safe to allow these emotions to run through our body without attaching story and then they don't get stuck in there.
Right. Well, and sometimes the story needs to be heard and it
Okay.
needs to be expressed,
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to be very big on like, oh, I'm telling myself a story and like let me just
Mm-hmm.
like get out of my head and like
Yeah.
that was helpful. And then I
Mm-hmm.
also realized like the reason this story keeps repeating is because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lesson here. As
Mm-hmm.
challenging or difficult as it might be for me to really
Mm-hmm.
hear what my body's saying, don't let this happen again.
Mm-hmm.
This time when you self-abandoned, this
Mm-hmm.
time when you, betrayed someone else or yourself,
Mm-hmm.
this time that you know, let someone, abuse you or your
Mm-hmm.
needs didn't get met. You know, those stories that we're telling ourselves that are sending us down this track, they're continuing to send us there so that we learn something from it,
Mm-hmm.
so that we change our behavior, so that we orient ourselves to a different way through the world. And so I'm so honored anytime that someone has a story that comes up that
Mm-hmm.
they're ready to share with me or
Mm-hmm.
talk about or even just
Mm-hmm.
allow to be,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
alongside their emotion, that's alongside that tightness in their back, like
Mm-hmm.
to me that's like, ooh, this is getting interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like let's integrate the learning here,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then it
Yep.
doesn't have to repeat endlessly because we learned the lesson,
Yeah.
right?
That's exactly right. It's the wounded parts of ourselves that just want to be held and just seen and acknowledged, like our inner child. And I was just thinking of samskaras then, it's like I think of them as soul scars. Or I had a meditation mentor, and she used to say that so, something, you only get like activated or triggered by something if there's energy there to heal, or there's a
Yeah.
core wound still to heal and connect with and heal and release. Otherwise, we wouldn't be bothered or triggered by something, right? It's like a flag post. It's like a blessing to go, well, hang on, let's look at this. Let's acknowledge this. And yeah, if it's in your face, it wants you to look at it. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. And it
Mm,
can be very difficult sometimes to look at those things or even understand them when one, we're in a heightened nervous system state,
Yeah.
right? When we're
Yeah.
living in fight or flight, when we're tense and
Mhm.
contracted, right?
Mhm.
And also, it can be very difficult to look at those things if we've never learned how to regulate ourselves emotionally or be
Mhm.
with and hold space for ourselves. And so that's why,
Mm.
guides like a teacher, a therapist, a facilitator, someone who's there alongside you, co-regulating
Mhm.
with you,
Mhm.
allowing you to be in your upset, you know,
Mhm.
and not try to calm it right away or soothe it or control it, but just let it
Mhm.
flow.
Mhm.
That's how you end up learning over time how to actually do that. If you didn't have parents, for example,
Mhm.
who taught you how to do that, right?
Yes. Yes, that's right. I mean, yeah, sometimes we grow up and we haven't been modeled that emotional maturity or response instead of react, because that's a topic that is always front of mind for me in my conscious relationship. We're always talking about, well, about responding and holding space rather than reacting, and like, so it's like interesting. It's like we always have a choice, but when things when we get triggered and our nervous system is like in flight or fright, we're not in our logical brain. So when we're in that state, I guess the first step is just to calm down, and then we can sort of sift through things. Is that right?
Well, there's all kinds of things that your body might need, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes your body needs to calm down. Sometimes your body might need to move, right? And that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons that, what the work that I do as a movement practice that
Mm-hmm.
is being facilitated. Like, I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can type in Hanna Somatics and you can try some movement videos. And most of
Mm-hmm.
the people on there will be teaching it very clinically, like, this will get rid of your back pain,
Okay.
right? What they don't tell you is like, this could get rid of your back pain and you could start having dreams about things that happened 15 years ago
Mm-hmm.
because that's what was held in your back. Like, they're not talking about that
Wow.
aspect, but I do, because that's what went
Wow.
on for me. And that's what goes on for many of my clients, is that you start unraveling stuff, right? So
Wow.
like, you have this, you know, pain that's you're living with, and then you start shifting and changing it through your nervous system, right? You're maybe going to need a few different things other than just to be calm. We want to help you return to calm. We want to actually teach you what is calm. Like, what is it to actually calm myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes a deep breath is not going to be the thing. Sometimes it's going to be, going on a walk. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be listening to loud music. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be like laying down in your bed and,
Mm-hmm.
breathing under the covers. Sometimes it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
like telling someone, how you're feeling and like
Mm-hmm.
actually expressing your, like, there's just so many things that your
Mm-hmm.
nervous system might need
That's great.
to move
Yeah.
through that experience,
Yeah,
right?
or scream or breathe or um yeah, that's right. There's so many different ways our nervous system wants to express itself. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
So then, and I like to let people figure out, like, well, I trust them, I guess. I trust them to figure out, as we continue to make connections in their body,
Mm-hmm.
that they are going to be able to come up with what they might need, you know? And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, like you said, once people feel safe that they can relax, that it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to relax, that their feelings, aren't going to destroy them, that they can be with them, right? They keep returning to that. They keep wanting to come back to more and more relaxation. But it can be a process, because not everybody is comfortable relaxing and letting down their guard in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
when they've never done it before. And that's what this
Yeah.
work is. It's very much a de-armoring of like the defensive layers, muscular layers that you have had there
Wow.
since you were born, or, when
Yeah.
things first started going awry in your life, whenever that
Mm-hmm.
was. Right.
Gosh. So do you think people have a default to their nervous system responds in flight or fright? Like, do they go to one or the other usually?
I mean, people have their patterns, and usually if I talk
Yeah.
to somebody, they know what their pattern is. If
Yeah.
they're like, we talk about it now, like with the idea of like avoidant or anxious attachment styles. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
common, becoming more common that people are talking about that. You could also talk about like, some people just shut down. They shut
Mm-hmm.
down and they numb out and they don't feel anything. They
Mm-hmm.
dissociate. And I definitely did a lot of that. And then some people are more reactive and more, have to get up and go, and they just start
Mm-hmm.
being really, really busy and busying themselves frantically doing things, you know.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of ways that it can look when you have been living in a dysregulated state, but the
Mm.
hallmarks are going to be you may feel disconnected from yourself, or like you don't really know what you're doing. Like there's a sense of disorientation. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm running around and I'm busy all the time, but I don't feel like I'm getting anything done.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of feeling. Or
Mm-hmm.
like I can't seem to like get myself to take action on anything. I think have all these ideas, but I don't take
Mm-hmm.
an action there, right?
Yeah.
Those are all kind of nervous system states, right?
Wow. It's interesting because I was stuck in that for a long time. And yeah, like I have all these wonderful ideas that I've always had and keep having all these downloads and but then I just felt like I just couldn't move forward on it. I just felt blocked or something. But now I'm in the swing of things, so that's great. But if I was triggered right now, my response is flight. I just want to get out of there. I just want to go, just leave. So that's interesting. So yeah, just I guess that's the journey. We get to know ourselves and we change and we grow, but there's always other layers, of healing to I don't know, connect with, release, heal,
Yeah, well,
open up to, become
there's
aware of.
there's
Yeah.
so much that we're unconscious to all the
Mm,
time, and that
mm,
we're continuously remaining unconscious to, that's going
mm.
on. It's often only like in retrospect that we go like, oh, I understand now like what was happening, and we can name it, you know? And I'd
Yeah.
say that like, you know, the, somatic work, or any kind of, even yoga practices, meditation, these kinds of things, they help us kind of, get a little bit more aware in the moment, that we can catch ourselves like before we're in our pattern again, or before we're
Mm-hmm.
in it, or we can catch ourselves right after we've started being in that pattern again,
Mm-hmm.
and we can
Mm-hmm.
sort of redirect and reroute to like the aligned direction that we want to go. Like that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
gifts of, one of the many gifts of these kinds of practices, right?
Mm. So when we Yeah, so because isn't the energy of it when the nervous system is dysregulated, it's fear, right? It's a fear response. It's like false expectations appearing real. Fear is just an idea.
Well, it's also lived experiences that we've had. And there's
Okay.
often very good reasons why people are afraid to do
Uh,
something, meaning that they went through something at some point in their lives that they learned it wasn't safe to do this. It wasn't safe to
yeah.
stand up in front of people and speak, or it wasn't
Mm,
safe to, ask for what their needs to get met. Right. So
mm,
there's
mm,
some conditioning, and that's part of kind of, I guess, like the idea of somatic is that we might like look at these things, these behaviors, and be like, oh, I just need to change that. I just need to get over that and move on. Whereas a
mm,
somatic
mm,
approach would be like, there's a very good reason that you haven't been moving forward with this, because your
mm,
body is holding on to an experience that needs to be more understood and integrated here.
mm,
And so understanding why it is that you're binge eating, why it is that you
mm,
haven't been willing to go on a date with someone, why
mm,
it is that you keep having, explosive arguments with your spouse. There's some very
mm,
good reasons in
mm.
your somatic unconscious that are
Yeah.
driving these behaviors. And in order to change it, right, in
Mm,
order to actually stop that from being how you operate, right,
mm,
you can't just snap your fingers. You have to dig in and be with the feelings and the wisdom that was behind those nervous system responses that we might label like bad or unpleasant, right? They have
mm,
wisdom behind them.
mm. Wow. This is just there's so much to unpack here, really. You know, I mean, in terms of us not having our needs met, it's interesting because it could be as a child and then even later, as a mother. Even now, my kids are 8 and 12, and I have them on my own half the time. And it's like sometimes, well, obviously want to be attentive to what they need, but then I'll be like, I won't have that glass of water, or I eat. And I still eat standing up at the moment because I'm talking to them and they're sitting on their little stools in the kitchen and I'm getting them things. I'm like, wow, I should allow myself to sit down and eat, like rest and digest, not 101. But it's like, but then other times I do, honor my needs. And, I feel actually I can, I've got a lot of freedom and I'm having a great life. So it's not like I'm denying myself all the time. It's just that there are moments I find in motherhood where you just have to like put your needs to the side there's, do you relate to that?
Oh yeah, well that's an excellent point. So that kind of goes back to like there are very good reasons why we dissociate. There are very good reasons why we ignore the needs of our body at any given moment. It's
Mm,
actually an incredibly powerful thing that we can do that, that we can override and, continue onward. That's our incredible human resilience that we
mhm,
can be like, "Oh, okay, like, this need is not going to get met right now because X, Y, and
mhm,
Z is happening. So let me just block that out for the time being, as that makes it so I can continue. For a really
mhm,
simple example, like if you've ever like worked somewhere and really had to pee and you couldn't stop because it was like food service or something and you couldn't
mm,
stop to go to
mm,
the bathroom,
mm,
you
mm,
brain can override that and ignore that signal for a
mm,
long time. Not that it's good for your body to do that, but that's just
mhm,
one way in which, like, through motherhood and stuff, you have to
mm,
bear through sleep deprivation. That's a
mhm.
huge one. And you
Wow.
have to keep functioning regardless of that. And isn't
Mhm,
it amazing and incredible that your body's able to, in a way,
mhm,
disconnect and,
mhm.
dissociate from that level of exhaustion to be able to do functional things like drive a car and all of that.
Yes.
Take care of your kids,
Yes.
be there for them,
Yeah.
respond to an emergency situation, right?
Mhm, mhm.
The challenge here is that we can't keep living that way forever. It's not
Nope.
sustainable,
Leads to
even though it's
burnout. Yeah.
totally, even though it's
Yeah.
really wonderful that our bodies can do that. And
Yeah.
there's a purpose behind that. There's a wisdom behind being able to do all of that.
Yeah. So if you have a client who is in burnout, I mean, I've heard so many successful businesswomen have reached a point where they hit burnout and then they just like obviously were forced to change their approach and decided to do business and life in a more flowing, feminine, receptive way, whatever that means to that person. But have you had clients there in burnout and do you help them out of that?
Oh yeah. I mean, somatics is incredible for that because if you don't, you do an hour or more of this very gentle, deeply relaxing movement that literally softens and lengthens and soothes your body from the inside out. People go into, their theta brainwaves. Bodies
Mm.
go into a healing state during this time. And the more that you practice it, when I see someone every week for 2 months is like one of my smaller packages to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
They get a big shift in their nervous system, they get a big shift in their physical body. And more than
Wow.
that, they actually start getting rest. Their body
Mm-hmm.
knows how to drop into parasympathetic and actually start sleeping again for the first time, start digesting their food properly, and they may even fall asleep during our sessions or be in that altered state of consciousness. And when they come out of it, they feel energized. They feel like they just had like 17 naps in a row. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
this is very powerful people from that. I'd say the number one obstacle though,
Mm-hmm.
that people who are facing burnout, right, is that as soon as they feel better again, their pattern of overdoing it,
Mm-hmm.
the pattern that got them into that can
Mm-hmm.
rear its head. And so there's a
Wow.
reconditioning of
Mm-hmm.
how to operate and why it is that they
Mm-hmm.
push themselves so far to begin with. That has to also like a foundational reset also has to occur, not just the rest and the relaxation, but a
Mm-hmm.
rearranging of how they've been operating at a
Yeah,
deep
well,
level.
that's such an amazing point. And is it because they feel that on some level they're not good enough or they're inadequate?
It could be, or maybe they have fears, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
fears that maybe have, reality behind them. Like, they fear not having enough money. They fear,
Mm-hmm.
losing their home, which is the same kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing of not having enough money, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But it may not be that that's actually real. It may just be that that's a conditioning that they're carrying from maybe a way that they grew up or
Yeah.
from a pattern in their family lineage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're functioning from this place of, I don't have enough, like scarcity, when the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that they probably are okay.
Yes.
That
Yes.
goes on a lot.
I know some people like that. And it's interesting because it's like it's a scarcity mindset or an abundant mindset. And sometimes people with so much wealth can still have a scarcity mindset. Yeah, so that's really interesting.
I mean, it
Yeah.
goes way beyond. I mean, I like the mindset thing is true. And I'd like to point that it's a somatic experience they're having, meaning it's an
Mm-hmm.
emotional state that they're
Mm-hmm.
getting into, or a
Mm-hmm.
detachment from their emotions that they're getting into, right? It's a running away from or running towards emotionally. And it may also be a physically felt experience that the scarcity mindset comes with a contractive pattern in your body. There's a literal, when you're in that mental state of
Mm-hmm.
like everything's about to just come crashing down and I'm going to lose it all, your
Mm-hmm.
body's going through a physiological response to that thought, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why we can address things mentally, but it only goes so deep in terms of changing what we
Yeah.
experience, right? We have to get to our nervous system. We have to get to our
Yeah.
physical body on some in some way to make a bigger shift.
Yep. 100%. That's right. Because we this is our house. This is where we live. Like this is how we experience life. And it's like, your health is the most important thing because then you can really enjoy life and play and have pleasure and all the things because you're feeling good in your body. And when you're not feeling good in your body, it's like it's like it's always there at the back of your mind. It's always like, oh, I would really enjoy this more if I didn't feel this, pain in my back. So
Right, right.
ah,
And how is it limiting, your ability to show up in the world in ways that you're not even aware of at this moment? You know what I
mm,
mean? Like I have experienced so much willingness in myself to take more risks and to show up in, in a way that I never have before in the world because I'm not uh, contracted and fearful in my physical body in the same way that I was. I'm not gripped by that. And the thing is sometimes we don't even know that we're being gripped by something until it loosens a little bit. We don't
wow.
even know that it's an unconscious thing. We don't even know we're doing it until we kind of stop doing it. And then we're like, wait a minute, I was
Mm-hmm.
doing that
Mm-hmm.
pattern or that thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, it's rare in this world that we just stop whatever it was cold turkey. We usually weave in and out of it, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a slow fade on letting go of patterns until we move into like our new configuration, right?
Mm, beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking today because that's really, really valuable information that you're sharing. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you do visibility work with people, right? And
Mm,
you're
mm,
helping people to be more safe to be seen and safe to
mm-hmm.
show up with like their true message,
Yeah.
right? And this kind of stuff goes hand in hand. Like
Mm,
you may not even realize it. I mean, there's probably ways in which you're inviting people
mm,
to have a more integrated somatic experience, but you maybe didn't have like the word for that.
mm,
But like I would
mm,
venture to say that you're probably doing that. Like, because we are. I look at people around and I'm like, we're all somatic. We just don't realize
mm,
it,
mm,
and we fight it. We fight, our
mm,
internal experience without realizing that we're doing that.
mm.
That kind of that idea of we can be our own worst enemy or something, right? But we don't know that we're doing it.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, and I mean, how much of it of the pain is past conditioning? What percentage would you say?
I would say the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the majority of it. And the conditioning is either, things that are that are asking to be released, right? Or asking to be integrated. They're
Mm-hmm.
either things that we're shedding and leaving behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're things that are actually meant to be part of us and they just need to be further metabolized. And it's not something that you do once, it's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a practice of connecting with what is aching or hurting inside of you, and gently, carefully working with it to discover what it is. Oh, this actually isn't even mine. I just picked this up along the way today. This is
Mm-hmm.
actually somebody else's upset. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me let that go. it triggered something in me, but it wasn't really ever mine. It was something I picked up, right? And then sometimes like, oh, it triggered something in me that is mine. It's
Mm-hmm.
that memory or that feeling again from 15 years ago. Oh, you're still
Mm-hmm.
here. Oh, there's still something that I need to learn about that experience that's
Mm-hmm.
mirroring itself in my reality now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that pain is telling me, right? That there's something
Mm-hmm.
more to learn here, more to understand.
Wow. You really got me thinking. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I guess
Yeah,
that
this is, go ahead.
no, you go. You go.
I was just gonna say, like, this is like my big passion, you know.
Mm,
I love talking about this stuff, and I love like inviting people to consider that, like, you know, maybe they really do have like everything that they need that they don't know that they have. You know what I mean? Like these things
yeah.
that we're like always looking for from other people and outside of ourselves. Like, yes,
Yeah.
it's there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also in here. It's also inside of you. Like you can take care of that ache and pain. You can teach your body how to be soothed and calmed, right? It can come
Mm-hmm.
from inside of you. Um, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's true. We have everything we need inside of us. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Good message. Well, is there anything else front of mind before we sign off?
Well, I mean, I think that somatic is becoming more of, you know, like a buzzword and people are learning about it more, which I think is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you know, as you're out there and you're, you know, scrolling and you're seeing the word somatic, just do some different like research. Look
Mm-hmm.
around because there's so many different types of somatic modalities and depending
Mm-hmm.
on like where you are in your nervous system at that time or the specific challenges that you're facing, there may be one that's like really, you know, the best to start with. And then
Mm-hmm.
there may be some that like you try and it's not a right now thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, some people who work with me are coming
Yeah.
to me because they're in physical pain and
Mm-hmm.
they've been in physical pain a long time
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't found relief. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're really motivated to
Mm-hmm.
take it on and see a big change. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I have people that are in mental and emotional pain, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Mm-hmm.
they're also looking for a change.
Yeah.
But, you know, you don't know how it's going to feel to make that change until you start.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, so for people who are starting out or curious about it, like as you're starting out and trying out these things, like get educated, learn about what's out there, try this, try that, and see what your body is saying yes to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great advice. And so, how can people find you and work with you then, Aimee?
You can go to www.freeyoursoma.com. That's my
Mm-hmm.
website. I do have occasionally I have introductory offers where you can you know, have a one-off session just to see what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of as my schedule allows. And then I have two group programs, Revive, which is a 9-week somatic movement adventure. And then I have a 6-month in-depth
Mm-hmm.
small intimate program that's really for deep level somatic excavation and education. And
Wow.
yeah, those are the main ways, but you can also just send me an email. Happy to hear
Mm.
from you.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, and same name,
Yes.
Aimee Takaya,
Mm-hmm.
Aimee Takaya on Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Have a good sleep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aimee, for that informative conversation. Here are the key takeaways. Number one, our mind and our body are connected, they're not separate. When we heal our body, memories can resurface for healing as well. Integrate our untapped human potential. We can do this via unifying and harmonizing our koshas, which are different layers of being, including emotional, mental, etheric, astral, bliss, and physical layers. Our tummy is a power center. It is linked to our gut health and our nervous system. We need softness there for functional movement. Majority of our pain is from past conditioning. The opportunity is for us to either release or integrate the messaging. Be proud of your stretch marks. They tell a story. Redefine what is beautiful about your body. The wounded parts of ourselves just need to be held. Allow healing to be fun. It doesn't have to be serious. Open up to joy on your healing journey. Sometimes our story just needs to be told and heard. Connect with the forgotten spaces in your body. These spaces are called sensory motor amnesia. Thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to me. These conversations are having such a positive ripple effect all around the world. So if you really enjoy them and want to spread those good vibes, please remember to subscribe, comment, like, and share with someone you care about today.